Hello, War of the Visions fans. I'm Jackie Fox, and today you're going to see me take on the meta, or at least some of the top teams in the world in Arena right now. And a curious thing has happened. Suddenly, all of these guys suddenly found their Shurikas and their Earth Resistance cards after I occupied the top slot a couple times. I mean, I'm basically the only single element team that isn't absolutely berserk or some type of wind. The wind teams seem to be losing to these Gilgamesh teams, though, but generally speaking, yeah, some of these matchups just aren't good for me. So after I lose a match, I like to experiment and play around a little bit and kind of see who I can beat, because I've got to know what the best team I can beat at all times is. It's within my window, because as you'll notice, there's a bonus. You'll see it on screen, kind of a rank bonus. It's usually like 1.15 or something, and it can go down a little bit below 1 if I'm fighting somebody that's weaker than me. Or at least somebody that has less points overall, and effectively a lower rank than me. And how many more points I have than them, or how many more points they have than me, determines how much of a bonus or how much I lose when this happens. So, especially if you're like in the lower ranks where people are kind of crammed together with similar scores, you're never really going to benefit from this bonus. But when you get really high up here, this is how people take off with score, because that bonus is only really available to the people at the very tippity top of the meta. And if you're not there, then you're just not going to be accumulating points as fast as all of us are. And we've got to be able to hang with each other to be able to keep that up too. So I've got to be able to beat a lot of teams here, and I'm really surprised at how well this team can do into a variety of threats. That being said, while there are some teams with Shurika that we can beat sometimes, basically we have to count on them not really optimizing for Shurika. Usually it's a problem, and this particular combo, I forget so many times why this combo is such a problem, but there is a follow-up hit deal here where Shurika attacks, then she follows up, and then Gilgamesh follows up, and it's just absolutely ridiculous for a lot of the reasons that we're going to talk about here. But in addition to that, especially on this map, most people are getting Summer Resnick to perform really, really, really well as a back row healer, because she just really doesn't jump up here with everybody else, and for that reason she often doesn't get caught in the same AoEs as everybody else, which keeps her in the back and keeps her safe from my team, both from damage and from me being able to silence her in the early game, which means that she's going to be able to keep healing through the game. That doesn't mean that I can't beat her though, and we're going to look at a few variants, a few teams that use her that I can beat pretty consistently, and it's especially great when I can silence her, but she's working pretty well on this map. She's also a good part of the reason why, somebody had said in a comment, actually there's one comment I want to get to before this, and the first comment that I want to talk about was on my curse video. There's an Elda player out there. Elda has I think a general barrier, and he was saying that, or they were saying that they have been cursed without taking damage through their barrier, by Sephiroth specifically, and personally I've not witnessed this interaction. I have never seen a character with a damage prevention barrier take curse. It could just be that they've gotten lucky. I'm pretty sure that you can physically dodge curse by either reflexing, but there may be a quirk of the shields to where you take the hit, and potentially that can trigger this activation without actually dealing damage. I do have a new card for my team, by the way. I got the new card in 5 pulls. Thank you very much. I'm so glad, because I didn't want to go for the whole 10. I'm trying to save up for Exia as well. I want to reunite the War of the Visions power couple and have them for another couple weeks. I've got a lot of orbs for this account because I don't ever really play it in PvP, because it doesn't have a diverse set of options that it can really work with. But here's the thing. It's strong enough that it can just power through things, and I'll show you why. But this is kind of a rush team, and basically it wants to apply damage really quickly, but it also wants to apply a lot of damage and take as many consecutive turns as it can because it wants to build the biggest chains, and it just wants to keep doing damage to people. It wants to find every way it can to optimize its damage even further and even higher up. And this is for a lot of reasons. I mean, we heal based on the amount of damage that we do, so we sustain almost as well. In terms of just like HP restore, we sustain as well or better sometimes than teams with more traditional healers. The thing that those healers are going to give us a run for our money with, though, is that often those heals come with all sorts of really great bonuses and really great enhancements and buffs. And that's one of the things that Sadali is going to hopefully slow down for them by decreasing the enhancement rate. Maybe they'll get a little bit less out of some of those buff rotations, because I'm seeing these healers on like 80-90% of teams, so they're a real consideration for dealing with, and his buff enhancement rate down is pretty helpful for that. It also helps that basically everybody is doing slash or magic damage, so his long range counter Retribution, you're going to see that activate a lot. And he's kind of a counter supremacy character. He has a lot of things where he kind of aggressively takes control of a particular dynamic in the match. And so I talk about his AoE resistance aura, and that's going to stack up well with the golem here. So that's going to give us like a lot of single target resistance, a lot of AoE resistance, and some strike resistance for what it's worth. But, you know, his counter is going to be able to counter slash and magic. That's most of our opponents right now. So he's going to be countering really consistently. But he's also got an aura that reduces reaction block rate on hit. So basically everyone on my team, everyone anywhere near him, when they attack, and himself included, are going to be lowering people's reaction block rate. So he's going to be turning off other people's counters. So that's going to help them keep from reflexing my hits. That's going to help keep them from dealing extra damage to me, but it's also going to mean that I exclusively, for the most part, am going to be doing this extra damage. So he's got extra, so he's going to be countering often. He's going to be doing extra damage from follow-up hits. This is what makes it so critical that you get as much human killer as you can on this guy, and this is why his vision card, I think, is going to be really important for that. And it works for a variety of Earth teams. It's a really good card for a lot of modern Earth units and a lot of modern strategies. It's just a good card, although I think for most of its groupings, it being a little bit magically based is a little bit awkward, but it's really good for Sadali in that way. So we want to be doing all this extra damage. And the other thing that we want to do that a majority of this group is really good at in one way or another is that we want to be getting CT up, because you'll see, like, I mean, that team, for example, we've got a healer, we've got a character who heals upon doing follow-up damage, who does follow-up damage all the time, and we've got an HP drain character. There's so much healing on this team, and they have potential, if we ever give them a couple of turns, for them to either attack us and recover their HP that way, or for Summer Resnick to just kind of AoE heal the field and give them some additional enhancements in a bunch of different ways, that they're going to be even a bigger pain for me to deal with, because, you know, she's basically working a full buff rotation into her healing setup. That means that we've got to get as many consecutive turns as we can, because, you know, characters are pretty bulky these days, and even though we're doing extra damage in like literally every way that we can to try to atrophy people's HP totals, we really need to get as many turns consecutive as we can to just wipe people's teams. And you'll see certain times where this lines up where we'll take 5 or 6 turns in a row, just ridiculously triggering off, CT up, taking damage from them, doing some more CT up. You know, they counterattack us, we get some more CT up. Just all sorts of stuff like that. And you can see this team really hit the accelerator and pump out a critical amount of damage, and all within the time, and with like the reflexes to do all of this within the window. Damn. I recorded all of that load screen and forgot to get the very beginning of this fight. But doing all of that, right? And I think you might be able to see it in this matchup. Like, for one, Sadali's just doing great damage here, but him moving close to Bradley has got Bradley back in this. Bradley just got himself some CT up, and now Mont is in this, and we've taken down their Crimson Wizard, or Flame Wizard, whatever this guy's name is. He has managed to re-raise, get some CT up and come back, and Gilgamesh is following this attack up for some big damage. But hey, Sadali got that reaction, and that was enough to heal his HP back from all of that. They just got a big CT up from her on that heal. That heal hitting all of them and giving them all of them CT is a big problem for me. Bunch of follow-up hits coming through. And see, here's the thing. They're kind of doing my thing. The thing I just described to you that my team does really well, they're doing actually really well right now. The Flame Wizard has some of these mechanics, and I think it's the Vision Card buff that you had to like extra wail out when you got Summer Resnick and get her Vision Card as well. That actually gives her the one that raises CT. This is just such a good heal because like it's a full tempo changer in a move. This is one of the reasons why we're seeing Summer Resnick so much, because she'll just swing the game around, because all of a sudden your team's fully healed and it's their turn. Whereas your opponent, they're still in the middle of a battle, like you just got completely refreshed and now you have the turns to beat us down, right? So that's pretty tough. But I had a little bit of a losing streak going on around rank 13. It's pretty tough, and the thing is, especially with stuff like this, your team kind of has to evolve as you're going through this process. And I'm learning a couple of things that are helping me to evolve this team, and I want to apply them to this glove team here. I'm not going to actually test this team out, but since Renoa is also a glove unit, she works with a bunch of the same synergies that Sadali does, so that's pretty cool. And that means that this Vision Card is going to be pretty good for her as well. But also, even though I think my agility might drop a little bit. No, what does it say? 8%? Let's see how good this card is for agility, though. I think it might be lower, but... So, while I was making a video for you guys, I was looking through a bunch of older Vision cards. Oh, okay, like 5%, so... Woof. So we do lose a little bit of agility, but that gives me a lot of Man-Eater up. And that's going to be good for boosting Mont's damage as well. Also, since we are having a little bit of an uphill battle, I've decided to go with a little bit less in the way of bonus points, just to give me a little bit of extra power and hopefully be able to push my way through some of this stuff. Also, for this team in particular, since unlike most of the meta teams right now, which are very much magic dominated, this is a physical team. And I think he changed something in this. I can't exactly figure out what he did to change it necessarily, but now Ramada is getting in position to use his courage removing skill, and it's just a really big problem for Mont and Bradley on this map. So I kind of had to retry some other things, and I'm going to show you how this team really shines. Now, keep an eye roughly on Veritosity Earth, because my whole team is going to stick pretty close to him. And that's great, because that's going to give them the ability to just soak up damage so well, especially with Sadali's ability active, because even though they're standing next to each other, and that's going to trigger people's AIs to try to attack all of us at the same time, but that's going to lock them into AoE damage skills, and that's going to get further reduced by Sadali. So even though you usually don't want your units to kind of bunch up together, these two units being right next to each other is a really great way for this to work out. And also, I just talked through this, and since I was talking, I can't back up. We just got cursed. I think Veritosity Earth took damage, because he certainly has a chunk out, and I don't know who else would have done it. So I think that... Oh, wait, it's Ramada. Nah, her curse skill breaks barriers. Of course it did. I forgot. We aren't going to be able to test this because Ramada's automatically breaks barriers anyways. Even if it was true, it wouldn't apply to her unless I had barrier breaking prevention, which I do have through Ash Mont, and that could be helpful. But unfortunately, Mont did not deal damage early enough to get that set up. If I'm right, then that could prevent my Veritas of the Earth from being cursed, and that would mean that at least against physical characters, which are all the cursed characters right now, at least at the beginning of the fight, Veritas of the Earth and Sadali would both be very good at resisting curse, which is a pretty cool advantage for a team to have, especially since any version of this team is going to be really, really concerned with self-healing. Also, how long have we been taking turns? This has been going on for a while now. And we just keep getting turns, like we keep slapping them down, and like part of the thing that fuels that combo is all of them have a lot of skills where they start gaining CT when they attack. But they can also gain CT from losing HP. So something can kind of get them, they get bunched up, so their affinity is at max. This is maxing out their agility each individually. The other team is kind of spreading out around them, so they're kind of getting further from each other and maybe losing their grouping and losing that affinity bonus themselves. But as we start laying in the damage, there very rapidly becomes a tipping point. Because when they lose that first character, they lose part of that affinity bonus, they lose some of their speed, and it becomes all that much more likely for us to hop up and take those next turns, especially if we're out there taking all sorts of CT steroids like these characters like to do. All of them just be bumping up their CT all the damn time. And, I mean, honestly, this opposing team is going to do the same thing as well. Maybe not quite the same way that we do it as consistently, but like, man, you've already seen what Resnick's heal can do for my opposing team CT. Like, that turns around a game just immediately. But at least in certain matchups, there have been a lot of matchups that I've won against this team where we just straight up body their Flame Wizard, like, right off the bat. Like, we just end him because we all go in and he's just right there getting hit. Alright, so their Sadali is opening with some damage. We're opening with some damage. Not necessarily the skill I wanted. Calculator Ren's getting some damage in. There's the heal and the CT up, but luckily it didn't apply to their healer as well, but it does mean we have a lot of damage coming in. It's also good that this happens early in the fight, because later in the fight, that can be backbreaking. But right here, right now, we still have the barriers up, we still have the HP to endure it, and we still have a lot of things active. So we can tank through them taking a couple consecutive turns, given that we get enough counters and given that we can heal back by doing pretty big damage to them like so. But you can see Sadali's already coming back. But we managed to hop in right there before it, do enough damage to heal ourselves completely and take out both of their characters. So now it's just going to be us and Summer Resnick up, but she's casting a full life and it looks like we're not going to be able to take her out before she can do it, so their Sadali is back up now. He's trying to take out my Mont, but he came so close yet so far away. Mont also, nope, never mind, shouldn't have counted him out early. He's still got that follow-up hit. And then Bradley ends it with a re-raise removing ping that takes her out of the game. So, as you can see, when you get your bonus turns, when you get your CT bonuses within the fight, can be really important to see who, like, snaps on the other. Because it can kind of be like a whip, right? I don't know how many of you have ever swung a whip. But you have to wait for this perfect moment to where it is almost kind of at an apex to start pulling it back, to really make it crack. And this team and a lot of competitive play right now kind of has that feeling, and it's very exciting. I personally think that this is pretty cool. Because you can just see a team winning by doing something completely absurd in so many scenarios. Like, if you're looking for kind of CT wombo combos, Ramada's another good example of this here. Her LB is its own CT wombo combo, so there's no Summer Resnick on this team, but arguably she might further the whole CT shenanigans. Oh, we got some courage removal there from Elda. Oh my. Wow, that hurt. This could be a significant problem. But we'll see. We'll see. Let's not count things out too early. We're having a lot of trouble with her barriers. Oh no, we're spread out too, but we're getting closer to each other. Can we regroup? Because they're coming in. They're not quite doing the damage they want. There's the CT down skill. So here comes the Wombo combo, but we're going to try to make it in. That should be a CT up for him. Yep. Not enough to get him. Oh, another CT up, another CT up. Okay, they're getting back in this. And that CT up was enough to get him back into the turn order to do big damage, take out Lucio once and for all, and do way more than enough healing to bring himself back to full. And fucking Elda's still barely doing damage. Once this team gets blinded, they're relatively accurate on their own, but once this team gets blinded, they really have a hard time hitting me. And there we go, we see the damage triggering the CT up mechanic again, so he just goes after Ramada. They really tank her out with re-raising courage for this team. Elda can't hit me. Ramada is looking a lot more accurate than her. There goes an Esper. This one's really coming down to the wire. And yeah, that was actually a really close one because Sadali all by himself kind of ran out of gas. But like the rest of my team got bodied around him and he just kind of survived and beat through them. And I mean, he could have had some well-timed heals. We kind of got snapped a bit on that one, but this really shows you how tough a contender he can be. It's genuinely very impressive. So let's try another one against... Oh, no. Let's try another one against Realm. Maybe changing around the order of my... Oh, no. I was... Damn it. I was hoping that this would get Maneater and HP Drain onto Mont. It's called Sadali to put it on absolutely no one, though. I think this is probably the worst case scenario, and I mean, I'm not super surprised if I win this. Honestly, I don't have the biggest advantage over this team. You might be looking at it elementally and thinking that I do, but it's still pretty tough. These characters can really punish my team. Ramada especially, since I have units that have like courage and protect very commonly. She is very good at cursing my team, unfortunately. Except for Sadali. And it's not even, I think, the curse resistance, but just that he doesn't really protect or courage himself. So he's not vulnerable to her in that way. But I think, like, in theory, if he had courage or protect and she had her curse rate up skill, then she could absolutely probably mess this guy up pretty bad. So, I mean, things are actually going kind of good. Sadali has been kind of the sacrificial lamb. He is tanking and distracting and really blinding and softening up everybody really well. Also dividing the field. The field's like retreating from him. I mean, I may not have the self-healing where I want it, but like, strangely enough, this is working and maybe even working better than what I was doing before. It seems like it's a really poor use of buffs, but dividing the team up like this has kind of worked. You know, I think it gives me a strong team on both fronts. Bradley and Mont are quite a force to be reckoned with, and Sadali himself can deal with a lot of this team. So, oh man, you know, if only we could get that silence onto... I raised his faith quite a bit, because I figure he's getting a lot more HP drain now, so he needs it for the healing. But I'm also raising his faith so that things like... I know silence is one of them. He can also put people to sleep. He can blind people. So he has a lot of statuses. And at least judging by how often I silence physical units that most likely have... Well, I mean, those two are HP drain units, so they might be running higher faith, but like that most likely have relatively low faith. I think I should be able to silence a healer should I hit them. But let's shuffle the team around again and see what a different setup of this looks like. Maybe if I put Sadali in the middle, give Mont the initial hate, then Sadali will definitely go to Mont with the buff. The problem with this is that this leaves Bradley like charging recklessly into battle off on the side, and that usually does not work out particularly well. I haven't tested this team against Rusty, so I might as well show you that. I'm not thinking that this is necessarily going to do that great. Here's why. Veritas of the Earth, his thing is not particularly going up against magic. He can get busted by it pretty quick. Luckily, we don't have a Shrek on the opposite end of the field because that really is his nightmare. But these are two very strong magic DPSs and probably like the two strongest in the game right now. So it's a definite issue for him. But hopefully, with the way that the team likes to group up around him, we can reduce incoming damage enough that we can be a real menace. And also, again, that grouping up, even though Veritas of the Earth is not particularly fast, it's not going to make him very fast. He does have some capability for chaining. He very consistently gets stuns in, which is a big deal. You know, shutting people down is a pretty great thing for a tank to be able to do. Sadly healing them up. We're going to come in and do some damage to them with our LB, so we're getting a pursuit skill. This is what I don't get. Retribution, when he hits me with Retribution, it looks like it's removing my follow-up attack. And maybe, actually let me look this up while I'm sitting here. I haven't looked at the Flame Wizard very heavily. It could be that he's adding something that has that ability to Sadali, like to all of his hits, which would be very powerful. And I'm not seeing it. I'm genuinely perplexed at how Sadali so consistently does this in this matchup. And maybe I need to look at Retribution specifically. Actually, let me open up my WotV, because you know, despite my misgivings, we're winning the crap out of this match. So maybe I wasn't doing something wrong here, but while I'm playing this out, what is this counters? Yeah, it says chance of counterattack. I don't... Returning to the video, okay, after reviewing the tape, I see what's going on here, and actually, it was Summer Sky Blessing from Summer Resnick that added the Dispel follow-up cast. And given that this can be handed out to multiple, I mean, basically your whole team if you play your cards right and set things up well, this looks like the most reliable way of removing follow-up hits in the game, because, you know, technically speaking, both Sadali and Ashen Mont function as follow-up supremacy units. They get their follow-up hits a little bit later in the game so that they can be a little bit more difficult to dispel, and because they're using their follow-up hit on the same hit that they are kind of proccing it, it means that there's never a window, at least to respond to that first one. So they're at least going to get one follow-up hit in, whereas other characters like Shurika, for instance, could get countered by this strategy really hard before they can even do damage with a follow-up hit. She's a more long-range character, so that's not super likely, but what I'm doing here is trying to get my speed set up. What I want to do is kind of the pattern that I've been seeing Resty doing, where 1 goes to 2, 2 goes to 3 kind of setup, and we'll see how that works. It should allow us to kind of funnel in behind Veritas of the Earth and get him up front, in front of us, even while he's the slowest, which means that we should relatively easy be able to catch up with him, overtake him, and then we're all kind of grouped around him by the time people line up with us, so that should help. But yeah, that's why some of these teams keep taking away my follow-up hits with even as much as their counterattacks. So the Retribution is really doing a lot with that combo. It's very powerful against me, I'll say that. But in theory, we should be able to do some of the same things. Both Ashenmont and Sadali can do this with some of their skills. But this comes up in that opening buff rotation. This also means that maybe if we can tank and distract enough, but also if we can kind of keep them from using their LBs for long enough, then it's possible that we can outlast this effect and be able to use our follow-up hits with impunity. But really, we want to be getting that extra damage in relatively early. Not super early, because we want to soften them up first, breaking through some barriers and stuff, and really making them a lot less damage resistant before we go in for the big hit. But now we're all grouped up here together. People aren't moving after attacking. They're moving up to us, so we can't really move past them. We did put that guy to sleep, but then our second follow-up hit woke him back up and did extra damage. Ooh, they got their CT up, so that's going to be a problem. Oh, Veritas of the Earth is down. This is a problem for us. It's going to make it harder for us to overwhelm. It looks like we've got a lot of CT built up. Here comes our follow-up hit. Missed them both. Praise be the light. Another follow-up hit. Hit them both. Did manage to take them out. CT up for Sadali. He removed both of our follow-up hits. That's real unfortunate. And we got a follow-up there. He got his second CT up. And the Crimson Wizard's messing us up. But we were able to retaliate and heal. The blindness didn't stop us. We were still accurate enough to hit him, but he still got the re-raise. The CT up, ability activation up, heal, debuff, like just a bunch of things on him now. Ashenmont is down for good, but we got some retribution, some CT up from taking damage. Flame Wizard also got CT up for some reason. Now he's healed and he has a magic shield. Ah, man, I think that's the death knell for us. So, okay. So, that team, that formation did not work for us. I think we got into a good point early on where we were bunched and doing well, but they just kind of burst on us a little bit too much early on with high magic damage, and Veritas of the Earth just couldn't hold up to it. As crazy as it sounds to say this, I think even Bradley is surviving a little bit better. He's got courage, and he can take a couple of hits of magic damage at the very least, at least until his barriers start to wear off, and then he starts to have a lot more trouble with it, but, you know, he can kind of compete with them, so. Anyways, let's try another formation, see how this works without Veritas of the Earth. Because that was the team that was working better against this. Usually Bradley was doing a little bit worse against this team. So we'll see how this goes. But, you know, I have a couple of teams that I'm running here. And, you know, like I was saying earlier, evolution and being able to adapt is important. And I'm kind of adapting in a shoebox right now because I'm on a really Earth-limited account. I do have an Ice team that I could break out, but I'd have to give up, like, all of my bonuses, and I still wouldn't have the best matchups into most of these teams, there might be a couple Earth-centric things that I could deal with at that point, but like my team would actively get easier for people to pick on. Maybe not Shuriken specifically, but you know, unfortunately, there's not a lot of teams that I can rotate in and still compete at this level. This is kind of, I can adjust one character on this team, but really the Ashen Mont Sadali combo is what's keeping me in the top ranks right now, and unfortunately that's been pretty easy to counter for a lot of my opponents. But that being said, I've managed to, through trial and error, figure out who I can beat, how I can beat them, what my teams need to do to be able to beat them. And, especially, here's the thing that I never really mentioned, but like one of the advantages that I think I have as a content creator is, I record this and then I edit it and then I come and do voiceover. I've watched each one of these fights 3 times. So, just like a basketball team reviewing old tapes to see, where you went wrong or where your opponents went right in a match. I'm doing kind of the same thing, and I'm hopefully learning a lot from this. But again, I am innovating in a shoebox. There's only so far that I can really go, and so much novelty that I can bring a team like this. Really, I'm just hoping that its unique brand of raw power, just explosive power, but also like really rapid acceleration. This team shouldn't be this fast because. And the reason that this has a good matchup into so many teams right now is that if you let people survive and you let people get turns, they'll heal up enough that they can survive. And you'll see me do this all the time in these matchups. I'll heal just enough to survive, to do damage to you again, to heal up even more, and now you're dead, and I'm healed, and it's all good for me. But once you lose a match like that, once you lose your winning streak, the best thing to do is to go to the top of the window, the biggest bonus, and if you haven't fought this team before, even if you're pretty certain that you're going to lose to them, you check them out. I mean, you don't have a winning streak, even if you think you're going to lose, because it's so valuable to find out if you can win. For instance, I'm pretty sure I'm going to lose this match. Oh yeah, this was Fina. Yeah, I definitely lost this match. But, if I could have beat the number 1 at this state, I really only need to be able to beat them consistently enough to maybe win against them 5 times, and now I'm number 1. So it becomes really important to be able to test all of your opponents, figure out where the weakest link is, and how to beat that. And as I'm the only mono elemental team, I think in like the whole top 20 with the exception of the Berserk Sephiroth set, which I think we'll see later in this video. It's really, really crazy. Like, one of the few things that at this current moment that really makes me want to put any amount of money into this game for like paid viz is the Selecta 120 banner for the Warriors of the Crystal Part 2. Like, a lot of people show a lot of attention and focus on Part 3, right? Because that's where the strongest characters are. Ashen Mont, the character I'm using now, is the pinnacle of Part 3. But Vega's TMR from Part 2 is just kind of broken. And, yeah, you'll see why here in a little bit. I'm definitely going to show you that team, but I'm refreshing myself and like seeing how my composition can handle some of these other teams. A lot of them have changed too. Like, people have changed their compositions to better be able to take me out. They've adapted. Some people who weren't running Shuriken have swapped a Shuriken into their team, or have started running Earth Resistance Vision cards. MRD has actually been using this strategy from the beginning, and it's always worked against me, so I'm not even going to test against them. By the way, shout out to MRD, by the way. Apparently you're in Takeover, which is Gasal's sister guild, so best of luck to you. You've been doing really well in this. I've seen you at number 1 a couple of times, so, just for the sake of our sisterhood, I hope you get this one. But with all that being said, I think I've talked about, like, some of the fraught matchups. Really, Summer Resnick can mess with me. But despite that, we have better matchups into like modern healer teams than most teams do, just because of how explosive our damage is and how some of our CT up mechanics can work, and how that can really compound on itself to just store us up a ton of turns at once and then unleash those in a unrelenting torrent against their opponents. But sometimes we also get double bodied by Shrek as soon as we line up for combat, so that happens too. But I'm gonna leave you with some of the loss footage. I put some of this at the end of my pick a weapon video, but here's the rest of it. And while I show you that, I want to say thank you for watching, and remember the free-to-play option for YouTube is to like and subscribe. Leave a comment, answer a comment. If you're a new player, ask a question. If you're an experienced player, go down there and answer a new player's question. This is how we build a strong community. This is how we build a strong game. This is how we build a strong channel, so help me do that. And another way that you could help me build a strong channel is by donating to the channel on Patreon or Ko-fi. I usually focus on talking about my books instead of this, but this is one of those ways that a lot of YouTubers make this worth their while, because I don't know if you're imagining that, first of all, this is a small community. I don't have a ton of subscribers or necessarily supporters, just because the global side of this isn't the most massive thing in the world. But also, even if I had 100,000 subscribers, or maybe even 1 million, it would be still difficult for me to make money on YouTube without running, advertisements, without me telling you that you need to buy Huel or Factor or Manscaped in the middle of my War of the Visions video. And one of the ways that this can be viable for me is if you send me some money on Ko-fi. Essentially, buy me a cup of coffee on Ko-fi, Kofi.com. And, that's a good way to send a single donation. Also, unlike Patreon, they don't take money out, or at least they didn't the last time I checked. So that can be a better way to make sure all of your money makes it. And they even do recurring donations. But you could also use Patreon. That's by far the more traditional one. And it certainly works. It's a lot more designed for recurring payments, and I'd certainly appreciate it if you just send a little bit of regular money to the channel. That would be great to help encourage me to keep making content for you. And definitely willing to take suggestions for content directly from the Patreons. If you are helping to subsidize this channel, then I should at least listen to and hear you out on what you want me to talk about. I mean, you're paying for my time, and if you're paying relatively well, let me give you what you're looking for. But with that victory aside, thank you so much for watching. And with all that being said, I'll see you in the next one. But that Resnick won't.